At Samarkand, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had told the Russian president that the era of war has ended. That line was echoed in the G20 outcome document as India takes over the presidency of this very powerful economic group in extremely challenging times. But is this only rotational and ceremonial, or is there merit in the Congress saying that the Prime Minister will milk the 2023 presidency for 2024 elections? Joining me on the show is BJP MP and leader Syed Zafar Islam. Anshul Avijit represents the Congress party. Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar is a former top diplomat who joins us for Diplomatic Perspective. Also with me on the broadcast is India Today's Shiv Arur and our Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan. Shiv, I want to begin by asking you, world leaders tweeting in Hindi, reaching out to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, what do you make of the optics from Bali?
You know, the optics couldn't have been better as far as India is concerned, Gaurav. Of course, there will always be those who say, this is a turn-based presidency of the G20, etc. But the context in which India ascends the presidency of the G20 is something that can't be ignored. The world is going through a historic, difficult time, a time of war, a time of, hopeful renewal. There's a recession facing the world. There are multiple crises facing every possible country. And India is looked upon quite unanimously from across the world as a stabilizing force, an oasis amidst a great deal of chaos, especially in this part of the world. And the optics totally reflected that. We can dwell on the tweets in Hindi, we can, dwell on the handshakes and the backslaps, but I think beneath all that optical energy, there is a great deal of substance in how India has carried itself, the example that India has set, digitally, economically, in other ways. There's a long road ahead. It's not all hunky-dory. There's a great deal of things to do. Yes. But as far as setting an example for the rest of the world is concerned, navigating a truly difficult time, I think India, in many ways, has been unparalleled in these times. Okay. And I have my link with Geeta Mohan. Geeta, you are a person on ground. Let's move beyond the optics, Geeta. India worked hard to break this deadlock, including on Russia and Ukraine. India ensured this summit wasn't about blaming any particular country, but trying to ensure that the world comes together to find solution, whether it's on energy or food supplies. What's the buzz on ground around India?
Well, the buzz was absolutely positive, Gaurav. It's not just about the negotiations, which I'll explain to you in a bit, but let's just talk about the entire summit. Look at the statements of every leader. Every leader in his press conference or statement has mentioned India, more so because India has taken over or is assuming presidency of the G20 from December 1st onwards, and also the role that India ought to play. India is a major economy, and not just an emerging economy, one of the biggest economies and markets of the world. India has made its place and its standing, and that's why there was a lot of positivity surrounding the idea of India assuming presidency of 2023. While she was talking about setting examples, Indonesia also set an example, Gaurav, and took a leaf out of Prime Minister Modi or India's book of how lifestyle for environment should be implemented on the ground. The entire G20 summit, the focus over here for Indonesia was the messaging: electric cars, electric bikes, no plastic, ensuring that they talk about climate change and environment. Island nations suffer and are more vulnerable than any other country or any other place in the world. Prime Minister Narendra Modi really talking about that, and every leader saying that they're looking at India. India today, with that document, the outcome document where you spoke of the statement, the phrase, it is not an era of war, that has been incorporated, clearly shows that the voice of reason, the voice of peace, Gaurav, today is India. It stands in between the extreme West and and Russia and Ukraine when it comes to Russia and the war, the ongoing conflict. So clearly a voice of reason, negotiation,
India
diplomacy,
is the voice
dialogue
of reason, diplomacy, as Geeta puts it. Geeta, stay with me. Ambassador Sajanhar, for a diplomatic perspective, what do you make of how India was taken on the world stage at Bali?
Thank you, Gaurav. I think it's a huge honor, it's a huge privilege for India to be given this opportunity. You used two words, I think, in terms of, the criticism that has been made, that this is rotational and ceremonial. It might be factually accurate to say that it is rotational because all the 20 countries will get an opportunity to host the G20 summit sometime or the other. But you couldn't be further from the truth to say it is ceremonial. It is very substantive. As it's been made clear, both by Shiv and Geeta, and also I think the Prime Minister in his statement, that there are going to be 200 meetings through the year that are going to be held in 50 cities of the country.
India, yeah.
And they are going to be discussing very, very substantive issues. It's not ceremonial. It's not just on the 9th and 10th of September 2023 that the leaders will come and you meet and shake hands and go away. No, a lot of hard work will be done. That having been said, Gaurav, there is a lot that India can be proud of.
Okay.
Not only in terms of civilizational ethos, in terms of culture, what we have to sort of, project to the world. When all these people, delegations travel to 50 cities, they will look at the diversity of the country. But in addition to that, India has acquitted itself most creditably while dealing with all the challenges which emanated either from the COVID-19 pandemic or even from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. In terms of 2 billion doses being administered to the people, giving out, even when our own vaccination was going on, giving out 200 million doses, more than that, to more than 100 countries around the world.
Okay.
Feeding about more than 800 million people, with food grains, providing them with this support. The digitization,
I'll come to these aspects one by one. You're absolutely right. Let's take them step by step. Let me now bring in Anshul Avijit. Anshul, first the issue with the lotus as symbol of G20 presidency of India, and now saying India's G20 presidency in 2023 will be used for 2024 elections. But sir, isn't the Prime Minister talking about the effort being inclusive, ambitious, decisive and action-oriented, and G20 being organized in different cities and states across the country? Is this about India or is this about BJP?
Exactly my point. It's, India is proud. But I think BJP should be proud even more because the BJP symbol is now the G20 symbol. The problem is that this particular summit was politicized by the BJP, by this government and by the Prime Minister right from its very inception by including that logo. Not only that, when the Prime Minister talks about inclusivity, about equity, about the poor, expresses some concern about the poor, irony dies 1,000 deaths. The gross levels of iniquity that exist in this country, the high levels of unemployment, of poverty, the way that our GDP has plummeted over the years, the way the unemployment has grown. The World Bank says that, the number of poor, extremely poor people have increased by 5.5 crore over the last 2 years. The fact that you didn't order vaccines, I don't know what you're gloating. I don't know what this bombast and bluster is all about. These are all falsehoods.
So you're saying vaccine is bombast and bluster? The vaccine.
Let me bring that you did not order vaccines and
the fact that you made vaccine. But let me take this to Syed Zafar Islam. Respond to Jai Ram Ramesh, respond to the Congress party saying it's routine, it's rotational, and that the BJP will tom-tom G20 in 2023 for 2024 elections, and that politicization started, as Anshul Avijit also echoed Jai Ram Ramesh saying, with the BJP symbol, the lotus, being the symbol of India's presidency.
Gaurav, the Honorable Prime Minister has established himself as the global leader in last 8 years, without any confusion. India is on the verge of becoming another superpower. And the new India, and the Honorable Prime Minister is the architect of new India, is going ahead and doing so many new things which nobody has anticipated in Congress party. That's why these days, when events like G20, which will be hosted by India next year, they are seeing is more politically than the strength which is being demonstrated by India as a country, not by Bharatiya Janata Party and not by Congress party, but India as a country. And it's an honor, as Ambassador Sanjana rightly said, it's an honor, it's a privilege to host such an event. And it definitely improves the image and stature of the country in the eyes of the global leader. Now you have to see that more than 500 global companies are exploring to invest in India. Why? Because India is a stable, politically stable, provide a good leadership, and India has everything which the global investor requires, and today they are making investment in India.
You know, the Congress is objecting. The Congress is objecting to the symbol. The politicization started just with the symbol of G20, as Anshul Avijit and Jai Ram Ramesh put it.
See, Congress Congress will make such observation. Everything Bharatiya Janata Party to strengthen the image of the country, and they will make this kind of a statement that we are using G20 for 2024 election.
Can I quickly come in?
Away from reality. Fact that it is an honor, India is hosting it. It has nothing to do with the election. In fact, every Indian should feel proud that such event of a stature.
I want to bring in Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar before I come back to Anshul Avijit. But Ambassador Sajjanhar,
I must compliment the Honorable Prime Minister, who is the architect of New India, is
fair enough, sir, you've said that, sir.
India as
Ambassador Sajjanhar,
in the eyes of the global community.
Prime Minister Modi said we will organize G20 in different states and cities. Together we will make G20 a catalyst for global change. Sir, is there merit in the Congress saying, and I know it's a political question, that the logo itself is political, BJP's symbol is G20's symbol, and it's all about projecting BJP for 2024 elections?
You know, in my view, as a diplomat who has served the country, I don't think that there are any political connotations that I can see in it. After all, lotus is the national flower of India. And I think it's a beautiful flower. And I think in terms of, when the Prime Minister was launching and unveiling the logo, he said very clearly, even in the darkest of, even in the most difficult of circumstances, a lotus always blooms. And you would recall, Gaurav, that when the managing director of the IMF, she was talking about the state of the global economy. She said in this entire, time of gloom and darkness, the one ray of hope, the one beacon of hope is India, because India has been able to sort of, acquit itself so very creditably on all fronts, whether it is dealing with the after effects of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. There are 415 million, this is not my figure, this is not figure from any Indian economist, but this is a figure from the World Bank, which from the UNDP, sorry, which says that 415 million people have been lifted out of poverty from 2005 to 2019, and that there have been so much of progress in terms of people being removed from poverty from 55.6% to 11% over this period. So, I think people who are trying to deny this, they should be looking at statistics, they should be looking at facts.
Anshul Avijit, sort of, statistics and facts over politics is what Ambassador Sajjanhar also seems to indicate.
Can I just complete?
Yes, I want to bring in Anshul Avijit quickly. What do you make of the Prime Minister's statement, era of war is ended, that line making it to the outcome document? Is that again election oriented, or is that a very powerful global message that's being echoed, India's line being echoed by the world?
Look, there is a respect that India has that has nothing to do with the Prime Minister, or that is despite the Prime Minister. It's a historical respect, it's related to India's democracy. There is a heft about India. Well, there was once a heft because it was wealthy. The wealth is depleted since this government came into power. It's about demographics, it's about the marketplace. India is a marketplace for global products. It's about data mining. So India has a different kind of position in the world. What I'm trying to say is, well, as far as the logo is concerned, I won't let that go so easily. When was the last time I heard that the Indian national flower was saffron in color? I thought the lotuses are supposed to be pink. What color do I see in this particular logo? I really don't know. So despite that, if you even leave aside the logo, Gaurav, the Prime Minister politicized this summit when he went to Bali and said that you know, it was 2014 when there is a new India that emerges, completely dehistoricizing India's past and the contribution of other governments which have actually made India's GDP.
Okay.
Remember, and I got a number of facts at my command. You know, if you want to go into facts, the GDP has plummeted, you know, precipitously after this government came into power. The levels of unemployment have increased
Okay, I'll
to
restrict
record levels.
myself to
I mean, nobody can
G20
deny
today,
that.
since you raised a point about G20 and India's domestic politics, you know, being discussed internationally. Syed Zafar Islam, respond. Jai Ram Ramesh also raised the point. One, G20 will be used to divert attention from real issues, fears the Congress. Jai Ram Ramesh also says that this long tradition that prime ministers or governments do not carry domestic politics, prejudice or partisanship to Indian audiences abroad, that convention stands broken post 2014. I'll bring in Geeta Mohan, but before Geeta Mohan, quickly respond.
I do not understand which...
Yeah, respond, Syed Zafar Islam.
No, I do not understand which issues... Shall I respond?
Yes, please.
Okay, I do not understand the Congress allegation that we want to, or Jai Ram Ramesh allegation that we want to divert attention. What attention we want to divert? Everything is going good for India. India's economy doing exceedingly well. The world acknowledges.
Really?
I think one should see the IMF report. You will see in terms of the GDP growth.
The current account
You'll
deficit,
see India
the trade
stand
deficit, the weakening rupee,
separately
slowing
in
exports,
separate column in terms of the
high levels of
in terms of
poverty
the
and
contribution it is
unemployment,
making
and
to
the
the
Indian
global.
economy is doing well.
Please do not interrupt. Please do not interrupt, Anshul. I didn't interrupt you in the big. I didn't interrupt. You can say whatever you want to say when your turn comes. Let me complete. I didn't interrupt you. I heard you. You are making a statement which is actually incorrect, but still I didn't interrupt you. All I'm saying that if you just want to see the IMF report, you will see how Indian economy is doing. And if all this statement which you are making is absolutely baseless and is only because of hatred you have for Modi, that's why you are not acknowledging the fact that what the global leaders are acknowledging, Global Investment Committee is acknowledging, India is doing exceedingly well. And India is the only country where inflation is under control, where all the macroeconomic parameters are showing actually so bad during your tenure in 2013.
You
but
know,
today you see from fragile economy, it is the best economy, most performing economy.
The
All
rise
the
and roar of
macroeconomic parameters
India.
are looking so good.
India on the world stage.
When it was terrible, you did acknowledge it. When it is doing very well, you have problem. When it is doing very well and the world is acknowledging it.
Before
Let
I
me
bring in
tell you one
Anshul,
thing.
Geeta Mohan.
We do not
Geeta,
want to use G20
NATO
or for
countries,
that matter, any other event for
Sir, you made that
2024.
point. Sir, you made that point. Geeta, NATO countries wanted the focus, and some G7. Sir, I'm giving equal time. No, sir, I'm giving equal time to all guests. I'm giving equal time to all guests. We'll have that.
No, this is not correct, Gaurav.
Okay, fair enough. Geeta,
No, you are
NATO
not giving equal
countries
time.
want to focus on blaming
You
Russia.
have given enough
but
time to
India,
Anshul. I didn't interrupt you. He was interrupting and you didn't make any statement.
Okay, Geeta. India wants to ensure the platform is not used for a blame game, but for a result-oriented approach for energy and food security. Geeta, this clearly is beyond domestic politics.
Well, it absolutely is. Any multilateral fora where India is representing itself. Remember, Gaurav, the voice of India is very important. Why? Because Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and it is not just Prime Minister Narendra Modi, because we have politicians today on the debate on a foreign policy issue, Gaurav. Let me add that it was even Congress and now the Bharatiya Janata Party-led government that has been saying that the voice of the developing nation has to be heard by the developed world.
Yes.
It is happening now, is a blessing. It is happening now is important. The fact that not just India, even Indonesia, as the during the presidency of the G20 said that G20 and forward-looking G20 has to be inclusive, that they have to hear the voices of developing countries, underdeveloped nations, least developed countries and poor countries.
Yes.
That India certainly is going to be that face. India will allow inclusivity, and that's what Prime Minister Narendra Modi said. So the coming year is going to be very important. Why? Because the world is grappling with an economic crisis, Gaurav. It's not just rupee dwindling, which is a fact. It is not just rupee falling, which is a fact, but it is also that the fact that the entire global economy is suffering. It's not just India.
But
And
one of
in
the
that,
aspects
in such
raised,
a scenario,
Geeta,
when you're going to move forward, there's only one way, and that way is up. But when you're going
absolutely.
up and you have to
Ambassador
take
Sajanhar,
everybody along,
the Prime
and
Minister
that's
set
going
the
to be
tone for
agenda of
India's
India
presidency,
in the
where he
coming
said
year.
one of the key focus areas for India would be principle of data for development. Digital transformation is the most remarkable change of our era, he said. Now, will that be seen as India's success story, or will the opposition perhaps look at that as BJP marketing itself for 2024?
You know, I don't know
Well,
what the opposition is going to do, but I think it will be doing itself a disservice if it were to look at it like this. I think the whole country needs to get together. The whole country needs to see G20 presidency as a project that is, each and every one of us has to adopt it and use it for projecting India, for promoting India in the world. Meaning, if we start, and this is exactly what the Prime Minister also mentioned when he was releasing the logo, I think we are talking about India's ethos. When he released the theme, it is one earth, one family, one future. So I think the whole country needs to really get together. If you just give me half a minute, I'll say, when there was a comment made that India's GDP is plummeting, in 2014, India was number 10 as far as global GDP was concerned. Today, India is number 5. It is $3.5 trillion. And even international organizations and agencies have said that India is going to become the 4th largest economy by the end by 2027, and the 3rd largest economy by beating both Germany and Japan by the beginning of next decade. So I think India's is the fastest growing major economy in the world. Everyone acknowledges it, and I think if there are people who challenge it, they do it at the risk of hurting their own credibility and the trust in the statements.
The point that India is making, and this is a point that the nation is making, that we need to move forward on the principle of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. To all my guests, many thanks for joining me. Look at that logo once again. That logo of G20 as India takes over presidency is all about Ayam Nij Paroveti Laghu Chetasam Udar Charitanam to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. That's the line that India intends to move forward on.